5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm Eddie Starr, and this is the College of Rock and Roll Knowledge. Class is now in session. This is where the music and culture that shaped a generation live on, and my own path through the world of rock and roll. All right, Dave. Dave Tankersley.
Yes, sir. Hello, hello.
So I would ask what's shaking, but I thought that we'd just dive right into it.
Okay.
About the Beach Boys.
Meh.
Yeah, I know, but I wanted to really talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Did your daughter have anything to say about the show?
Well, she had a blast. Yeah, I mean, they deliver to the audience what they expect. And I think, most people who would be going to this, they don't have the demands and expectations of more serious connoisseurs like ourselves, perhaps. So, there's no Brian Wilson there at all. And it's just what you're going to get is the California groovy hot dogs and fireworks version of the Beach Boys that they're, probably more traditionally known for, but, they got a lot of deep cuts in there, and they could have been so much more had things gone different for Brian Wilson. But Mike Love was happy with what Brian's dad made him do, right? And made Mike Love a very rich man, a man of I don't know. I don't know a lot about Mike Love, but I just presume he didn't write hardly any of the songs. Probably had very little input in it, but got to benefit a whole lot by being a front man. And he didn't want to lose that. He was happy with that, and he's happy playing, county fairs or whatever it takes, as long as he could sell the show out. So, what did you get there? You got Mike Love with TV actors or TV personalities. I told you about that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. When I see the Beach Boys, okay, I might make an exception for, singing the, all those traditional hits and stuff like that. But I'm not paying to see, what's his name? The guy from Full House. Why am I skipping his name right now?
John Stamos.
John Stamos. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, no dig on him. I've known people who've known him. He's apparently a cool guy. But I'm not paying to see John Stamos. He's not a musician, or he's not known as a musician. And, he had no part in their history whatsoever besides getting them primetime TV exposure back in 1988 or something. I don't know when that Full House happened. But,
I don't really remember. I never watched.
And then, and then what's more to it? I mean, another guest musician was another former TV personality, but he also had a band. Mark McGrath.
I don't know who that is.
He's from. Oh my gosh, people are going to hear this and think I'm so lame and forgetful.
I think
only because it's true. But yeah, I mean, they had, 2 hits back in the early 90s or somewhere thereabouts. And then he was on Entertainment Tonight as a host on there for a while.
Isn't it called Sugar something?
Sugar Ray, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, but he probably had more fame and fortune by being the host of Entertainment Tonight for a while. I mean, probably a cool guy as well, but I want to go there to see the Beach Boys. And, hey, I want to see as many original people as possible. and deeper cuts and stuff like that, and not all the, surfer, fun-loving 4th of July hot dog version of the Beach Boys that Mike Love, likes to bring to the forefront. And then it got even worse than that, apparently. And mind you, people, I did not go. My wife and kid went, and I basically was a chaperone that night, just drove them and picked them up. But to make it worse,
integrity.
Well, no. I mean, had things been different, I probably would have, just for my kids' sake, bought a ticket. But we won these tickets, through KLOS. So we went to a Breakfast with the Beatles event, and we won them that day, but they only gave us a pair, right? So just to make it easier for everybody, I just decided, you know what, you guys go, I'll drop you off, I'll wait. I'd rather wait in a parking lot somewhere for 3 hours than see what is about to unfold. But, and then to make it even more, just really pile on the annoying for a snob like me, was they had, I don't know the name of this artist, but it's a country artist, modern country, and I can go on and on about modern country and what garbage it is. It just has no redeeming social value whatsoever. But there's this band or duo out right now. They got this song called Beach Boys that basically borrows a bunch of riffs and, vocal, things, from various Beach Boys songs and celebrates them. Well, they got invited on stage to do their songs. So I was so glad I didn't go in. I'll just say that. But I was just telling my kid, okay, I'm glad you went. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I mean, that's all that matters. But when Brian Wilson comes around again, and hopefully he will, you're going to get a taste for what they really are and could have been as well. But when some artists just keep going on and there's hardly any original members, and they're selling it as the band, maybe like Creedence Clearwater or somebody like that. It's just I don't know. At some point, they should just kind of alter the name a little bit to let fans know that, hey, what you're getting is a tribute band with one original member. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, you could have, he could have called it Mike Love and the Beach Boys, and it would have been something entirely different.
If you read the headings and stuff, it's Beach Boys with, I don't know, Mike Love and Friends. I don't know, it's like kind of buried under the headline. It's not quite totally obvious, but but they got, for a while there, he was working with Brian Wilson, but I guess it came to a head and they decided not to work with each other again. But Mike still gets to tour as the Beach Boys, and Brian Wilson, I think he's okay with that. He just wants to move on.
Well, remember the Suite? I think that was probably the weirdest thing ever. I think at one point, I can't be sure, but
who'd you say, the Suite?
Yeah, the Suite. They had a band that was calling themselves the Suite in the United States and one in England.
Okay. Yeah.
They were both calling themselves, like there was like some trademark thing or whatever. But I guess my whole reason for asking you about that story again is because I wonder, this whole idea of, continually to trot out these same, after, you can say, okay, well, they have a member or they have two members or something like that, but it's not really, why not go off and build something new at one, rather than just,
that's what Brian's been doing,
Yeah, or just doing the Mike Love singing the Beach Boys music.
Yeah, celebration of the Beach Boys.
That would be Mike Love and Friends sings sings their music or whatever. That would, that would be cool. But to me, it's like this whole idea of like, it's sort of in a way like a false, like something just not true. It's like how
it's a money grab.
Yeah, but it's like what happened with sort of like the tribute bands. Remember what was that band in LA that did the Doors really great, and they became
Wild Child?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they sort of like became the huge thing, I think, at the Whiskey. And from that, it just sort of like, then you just hear people like talking about these bands that are like almost better than the actual band, but they're not the band. And I remember reading some type of article at one point about, is it really about the band anymore? Or do fans even care if the original members are there? Or
I guess it's a case-by-case basis, whether it's, I don't know, I guess we're looking for ethical or not.
I don't know about even ethical. I just think it's like, it's like that whole point of where like the whole name recognition thing, it's like there could be something really good out there that could, have potential to, really be successful, but we're not going to do that. We're going to trot out this thing that's 100 years old because we know that at least it'll break even. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
it depends on where the musicians themselves in the band want to be. And, some are just happy to have a gig and have work.
Yeah.
But,
I'm not denying anybody that. I just think that when you're going out and you're,
if you're trying to use the original name and say that you're them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but if you're going to tour as Rainbow and you don't have Richie Blackmore, it ain't Rainbow. I saw a couple years ago, I think, or maybe more recently, but the Babies. I don't know if you remember them much. It was John Waite's first band.
I heard of them, but I never.
I liked them a lot when I was a kid. They were kind of big, for a time. They didn't get huge, but I liked them, and still throw them on about every 2 or 3 years, something like that. But I saw that they regrouped, but without John Waite. Like, why bother? It just doesn't have that chemistry. I mean, you got the musicians, or at least most of them, right? But if you don't have the singer, I mean, it's just not quite the same. Some people could skip by with it. Opposite of that would be Grateful Dead, right? They went on, they're still hugely successful without Jerry.
Yeah. And they still have how many tribute bands?
Oh my God, it's countless.
Weren't you even telling me that some of the original members work with the tribute bands now? And it's like this whole,
some kind of, I don't know, some just attract a bigger audience than others. There's, I forget, Dead and Company, I think, is like the biggest one. They actually play, medium to large, venues, like, maybe like the equivalent of the Palladium in LA, something like that at best, or they'll do outdoor places and such. Somehow they just managed to, build something and it got bigger. And then another band did orchestral versions of Grateful Dead songs, and they're getting, like, interesting, I mean, they could come up, but, then like Grateful Dead, they, I guess some of those people get picked up, and then, relationships build and they get invited to play with the big boys, so to speak. Or, sometimes they'll come down and jam with that band. That band I know, Cubensis. Talk about a tribute band that has a life of its own, and people, their career emulates the Grateful Dead's quite closely. Their leader, the guy who formed the band, passed away recently. And, it's a tribute band, but they're still going on, and they have as big of an audience as ever before. It's really curious, the life of its own that some of these bands can have. But yeah, they've had members of the Grateful Dead come and jam with them. The last keyboard player before he, ended his life. And I think they did something with the bass player once, and then they've had members of the Black Crowes and Warren Haynes and all kinds of other people come and sit in with them, and they have a reputation of their own, and they're just a tribute band basically.
I always thought the Grateful Dead was almost like that goes back to sort of like what the vibe of the band, the original band was. I always thought of the Grateful Dead, their fans, as almost like it was like a religious movement or something like that.
I guess you could say that. Certainly from an outside perspective, it would seem that way. There's a lot of pros and cons about that experience either way, right? But I dug it. I dug it a lot. I mean, when with Jerry, at least in particular, it just felt like, you and I can remember this, but like, just reading through the Creem magazines and stuff and having that, just craving that rock and roll experience, right?
Right.
It wasn't, rock and roll in the sense of a Kiss concert or Ted Nugent, I don't know, just anybody else. It was just a very different communal thing where the band is there for the people and the people are there for the band. And, it's like a more spiritually connected vibe that just, when it worked, it sounds trippy, far out, cliche, but it was magic when it happened. And something special was there. And it just, felt like that communal nature of, being part of that crowd, was, just, the connection that I think everybody wants in music.
That's true. That's very true. I mean, I never really got that whole vibe. Honestly.
It's hard to get.
Yeah. I mean, but I think that you had like more, I always, when I think back, I always think of your taste as being very eclectic. You had an interest in lots of different forms of music or I guess you could say variations of rock and roll. That brings me to the next thing that I wanted to ask you about too. Speaking of like bands and this whole like false, I guess you could say, pretense or whatever, right? No, because like your daughter went to see it, right? The show. And, and while she had a good time and all that, it still wasn't the Beach Boys, but in her mind, it's the Beach Boys.
She
right?
got what she wanted. Yeah.
Yeah. But
because she's listening to Spotify.
Yeah. But what I'm
basically getting the best of. She's not listening to albums and, getting the emotional impact of Pet Sounds, and it's like thinking, wow, he's a really trippy songwriter. And what about this history of connection, influencing back and forth the Beatles and the Beach Boys? What a neat story that is. She's not quite there on, piecing those neat elements together. She's enjoying, the popular songs. And she got what she wanted. She had a great time, and I'm happy for her on that. I'm not going to, write her if it's like, yeah, that's not the real Beach Boys, kid. You don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I don't mean I don't mean that, but I just mean like this whole idea of, you see, and this goes right into two other things I really wanted to talk to you about. That, Creem Magazine is supposedly coming back. I think next month. And anyway, I've seen a couple of their ads on Instagram or whatever, and one of them was like, your dad's rock magazine is coming back. And then the second one was I forget the exact.
Yeah, that might have worked back in the 90s.
Yeah, but it sort of was, they put up this other like really cringy, like political thing in with it.
Uh-huh.
And it got all these things about, people were like, oh, just tell us about the music. We don't really want to hear about your cringe politics or whatever. And I just thought, if you're really trying to just like bring the spirit of Creem Magazine and just like bring the magazine back, why not pick the best parts and just do it? Once again, it's this whole thing of something that really isn't something. It's a name, right? Creem Magazine, but it's not really Creem Magazine that you remember. Do you know what I mean? Because now, rather than taking what was the greatest thing and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, to maybe, we're going to take the spirit of it and bring it into the 21st century. It's like, oh, we're going to do whatever.
Making it woke.
Yeah, we're going to do whatever we have to do to make it sort of fit into like modern society and how, some people have a tendency to think. And so you have that. And then, of course, like I said, the Elvis movie, which I'm a huge Baz Luhrmann fan. I loved Moulin Rouge. I loved Strictly Ballroom. But, when you go into a movie like about Elvis or any character, you're talking about the Freddie Mercury movie, you already have some, if you were a kid who grew up in the, late 70s, 80s, you already have like a preconceived idea of these people because you read the magazines, you were there, you read their quotes and what they said. And then you go
experience the music when it was new and fresh.
Yeah. Well, or even if it not necessarily new, like in the case of, Elvis was still putting out hits in the 70s, but we were little kids and all of that, but you still had, like what I'm saying, an idea of what his impact was, just the whole vibe. And then you go, so when you go into the movie, you have like, oh, I'm expecting something, right? And then you see these very engineered stories. And, the funny thing is that these filmmakers, and like I said, I did think the movie was entertaining and stuff like that. But I thought for someone as innovative as Baz Luhrmann, I thought, well, he took the oldest cliche in the book of the manager versus Elvis and, oh, he got ripped off and how terrible that is and all this stuff like that, right? Took that story and then put it like behind the mask of this like sort of very politically correct engineered story.
A more woke retelling of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I thought, well, maybe it's just me, right? And then there was an article in Variety where they interviewed Tom Parker's biographer. And she that was the first thing she said. She said they asked her if, she thought that the liberties he took were fair and that. And she said, basically, of course, with the exception of Tom Parker, and and also that she said the extraordinary effort that he has taken to make the movie seem, woke or political correct or whatever. And I just thought, when I sat there watching it, I thought, you are telling it was going through my mind the whole time. You are trying to tell a story and you want me to think about that story a very specific way and to think about Elvis in a very specific way rather than just,
Yeah, it was a little thick. I like that they included those little to me, little parts of his story. They're not little, but, it wasn't lies about, the influence of Big Mama Thornton on him and all the other Black artists of the time. And, he did, in fact, go to, gospel churches and stuff to absorb the music. But, where was Sam Phillips and Johnny Cash and that whole gang in all this, and, the Memphis Mafia? Like, did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm
All
just
right.
listening.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't hear, I mean, okay, those stories have been told to death in movies. Maybe they wanted to take a different direction with it. I don't know, but I mean, there must have been more to the story in relation to, those guys, all those people, and Tom Parker, Colonel Tom Parker. I mean, they could have told it, but no, they had to like tell it, oh no, Elvis was, so cool and not racial and, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, well, I think it wasn't just
Yeah.
that, but the whole way they demonized Tom Parker and
Mhm.
made him like, oh, he didn't want
Made
Elvis.
you dislike a guy for no reason.
Yeah. Now
No
the
real
funny part, well, the whole funny part was they tried to make the sort of, I guess you could say, the statement that he wanted Elvis to tone it down and he was trying to tell Elvis what to do. So by not giving, he didn't give Elvis's due and he didn't give Tom Parker his due because he tried to make it like, oh, Tom Parker was the one telling Elvis what to do and to tone it down, like in the movie. And I thought, number one, that doesn't make any sense because I could tell anybody from experience. I never met or worked with any producer or manager who would tell you to tone it down. I mean, that is like, that's what's going to bring the money. In fact, most of the time people would be told to like, what can you say that's the most controversial thing that's going to get attention or, be charismatic, and all that stuff. And he had it. So, he had it in him. And I just think that to take that away from him and make it like, oh, it was a political thing that they sent him to the army because they were afraid that he was corrupting teenagers. So he went into the army and then he came out like a goody two shoes and, did all these movies and became like as American as Apple. I mean, I'm getting it. My tongue is getting tied.
Yeah.
Like, the all-American guy who, like the opposite of that whole,
Well, he became the guy that, I guess, for lack of a better term, corporate America wanted.
Well, that's what, but I mean, he wasn't, but initially
he was, more raw.
But what I'm saying is none of that stuff even happened. I mean, she was talking about in the article, and I wish I had it in front of me, but I don't. But she was talking about, how Colonel Tom Parker never told Elvis what to do, and that the whole thing with the army was something that he went into it and did his duty or whatever. But there was no like, oh, we're going to get you out of here to like save the youth of America type thing. And, I just thought, to me, after I walked out of it, even though, like I said, I think it was entertaining. And if someone who doesn't really care about, is not as attached to like rock and roll and what it means. And, as a music fan, they probably would enjoy it and not think it. But when I saw it, I just thought, aha, I see what you're trying to do. I see what you're trying to do. And that
if it was built as a story told as fiction, is one thing, but it's based on, a real person and real events, and you're interjecting opinion and not so much opinion, but ideology.
Yes,
into the mix.
Yes, and not only that, but you are directing a story. Not only that, but you're taking away the merit of two people. I mean, without Colonel Tom Parker, how many managers would be employed today doing anything? I mean, he really was the one who said, whether you're talking about pop music, whether you're talking about any type of music that's popular in terms of the modern day rock star or pop star, he really was the one who sort of set the path in terms of like, okay, we're going to get you a major deal with, major label. We're going to merchandise. We're going to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't,
at least for a time, he was the gold standard as far as how to,
I mean, you
ascend to the top.
Yeah. But I mean, you could still make the argument that what he did is still, I mean, very much a part of what you see happening today in music. I mean, yeah, it's done different ways and all that stuff, but really it's not, even with the internet and all that stuff, there's not really a whole lot that's necessarily changed in any way in terms of, how people, what is the formula that you do. It's still about merchandising, about touring, about getting on having a label with resources and all that stuff. And anybody who says it isn't is just like, they have their head in the sand. And yeah, you can do a lot independently, and there's a lot of resources, and that's great.
Yeah.
That's why you see all these people. But
you could do a lot more independently nowadays than you could in the past.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. But yeah,
but I mean, even look at Sun Records. I mean, if there hadn't been that independent back then, and if you watch Jailhouse Rock, you watch Jailhouse Rock, and you have the story. I was watching that not too long ago, and I even did like one of my solo little vignette things with it. I was talking about it, or trying to talk about it, I guess you could say. But the whole story, like when we were growing up, you heard about like, oh yes, and now artists are doing this thing with independent labels, right? We heard about that. But all we would have had to do really is watch Jailhouse Rock, and wow, they were talking about it back then in the movie, in the story. Nobody wanted to play him, so they started their own label, and they went around to radio stations and record stores, and that's how they started it. And then, of course, he goes to the major label, and then he becomes a huge star, and then he has this whole what can you say? He realizes that, stardom has gone to his head. But I mean, the movie is sort of like, it was done in 1957, but it still is the same story.
Yeah. Lousy.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about, you were talking about Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yeah. Kind of, well, I don't want to dig, I like the movie basically on a basic level, but did it deserve an Oscar? No. I mean, that guy was not best actor that year. And I like that person. I like a prior series that he did, I, Robot. Have you heard of that? Or Mr. Robot?
No.
Really good, actually. Really good sci-fi type of thing. Worth checking out if you could watch it sometime. But I like the actor very well. I just didn't think he deserved the Oscar for that role. And the rest of the story, I feel like they gloss over a little, too much of the early years. Just kind of idealize it and embellish it, to a certain extent. But as much as I diss it, it's still one of the better rock and roll document or biographical series I've ever seen. I'll say that much, because usually rock and roll biographies are pretty bad. I mean, I'm just not a fan of La Bamba or what else you could throw out there that are similar in nature.
What about the Buddy Holly story? I think, wasn't that with what's his name?
Yeah, it's just kind of okay, but in reality, how do you capture a really good life story in 2 hours, right? No, so you got to give some flexibility on that one. You got to leave out a lot, but I thought it was really good overall. Just but the subject, the nature of Freddie Mercury being gay, big surprise. Everybody knew he was gay the whole time. It's not like, he came out with it, his career would have been ruined even in the 70s. I mean, come on. I remember even as a little kid in those days, oh, he's gay. Oh, really? All right.
Well, that's like Rob Halford thinking that nobody knew.
Yeah, somebody pointed out a comment that he made once, about buying flowers for his, did he ever, is it basically they asked him a question, if he ever bought is it true that he never bought flowers for a woman before? And he said, well, only my mother. So you read into that, it's like, okay, well, now that I think of it that way,
Yeah,
I
but
guess he is.
Yeah, but if you just looked at the way he looked, you could.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It was sort of
No doubt.
pretty obvious to everybody.
Yeah, but even my dumbass back in the time when I was into them in high school, like, oh, okay. Oh, he's gay. All right. Well, that's kind of.
Yeah.
I guess that's a little odd for heavy metal, but so what?
I didn't. Yeah, but I don't think anybody was really thinking about it in those terms, or
I'm also proud
like
that
the music, because people were just talking about the music. And
Yeah.
it's like now, because everybody feels like the need to just like spew out everything about their lives and their personal lives and all these
and their pronouns.
Yeah, it's like I think that I think it's just sort of takes away from like the music, because if when you read Creem Magazine, they were talking about the music. When you even Circus, there'd be other things in there and gossip and stuff like that. But
well, yeah, and I was going to say earlier, going back to Creem Magazine. I mean, okay, so yes, it's whatever about your dad and all that garbage and whatever. But I mean, you and I probably have a nostalgic view of what it was. But do we remember a damn thing about any political statements or opinions that they had? No, we only care about
I don't know
stories
anything about
and the
that.
music. Yeah,
but I had to really think about it.
So why do they have to feel compelled to, bring that into the picture? I mean,
well, because it's the whole idea of everything, the politicization of everything, and that's why I think if like some of these people that we grew up listening to and stuff like that, I don't think a lot of times that they're really like aware of really even what's going on. I think a lot of times it's probably just the publicists saying, trying to figure out how they work into a story or something like that. And or someone tells them, oh, hey, it'd be a good idea if you did this or whatever. I don't even think they're aware of it. It was like, what's that? Because after everything that went on in their lives back in the day, how could they even it's a blessing that they can stand at all.
Haven't put all their money up their nose or something.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, I did think it was sort of cool that I did see the cover that they were doing, and they were saying it says on one side, rock is dead and print is dead. So I thought, well, that's somewhat cool, but I just hope that they stick, it'd be great if they stick with music. But then at the same point, it's like, why are you trying to drag everything, maybe because there aren't any music magazines, and maybe it'll be great. And I hope it's success for them. I do hope it's successful, but I'm not trying to, just be critical of anything or, that anyone's trying to achieve. I just think it's like, well, try and take the best attributes of something instead of going with this whole glossy, oh, that's the Beach Boys, and everybody's going to tell you it's the Beach Boys, even though John Stamos from Full House is standing up there. Oh, that is Creem Magazine, and Creem Magazine was cool, even though they're making cringe political statements in their advertising, and it's supposed to be about music. Even when you go to Rolling Stone and you read an interview and all the headlines are cringe.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's like, Creem needs to look at Rolling Stone and ask, why Rolling Stone is not, the gold standard anymore. I mean, that was the gold standard of success as a rock star back in the day. Now it doesn't mean anything really. And, I think anybody, if you're asking about Rolling Stone nowadays, you just think it's a leftist political rag. Whether you're on that side of the equation, politics or not, if you want to read about that stuff, you read liberal newspapers or liberal media sources.
Right, but I mean,
right.
at the
I mean,
time, they always
I want to when I want to read about music, I want to read about music.
right. Well, that is the whole point of it. And I mean, even though they did always have articles, to be fair to them, in their, in their journal and stuff like that, it wasn't like, it was generally like some great investigative piece or something like that. It wasn't like these very weird, they looked like they were drafted by like a college newspaper or something like that, type articles and stuff like that. And they aren't just, so I mean, to me, it's like, wow, if they're going to come back and they're going to talk about music, then that would be great. And you know what? The thing is, all these people who are doing all these things, they don't really realize how much money they could make if they just talked about music. They don't understand how much money they could make. It's just like I went and saw Top Gun, and this isn't musical, but Top Gun, you know what? I really enjoyed this, the Maverick, the sequel. I really enjoyed it. Actually, it took me back to the year we graduated high school in a positive way. I felt like it wasn't cringy. The characters didn't act like, like they were still, 18 or 28 or whatever they were. And it was a great story. It was fun. And when I walked out, I felt like, wow, what a cool movie. I enjoyed myself. I didn't have to think for 2 hours. You know what I mean? Whereas like like I said, when I walked, instead of like the experience with Elvis, when I walked out of that, I thought, yeah, someone else is trying to tell me now how I should think about Elvis. And that's just like,
it's entertainment as parents, whether somebody's telling you, how you should handle or how you should think, basically.
Wow. But not only that, the thing that too bugs me about it is that rock and roll was supposed to be on the outside of everything. It's about the outside of the mainstream.
Yeah, that was a fun appeal of it, because it was the youth and the young culture.
Yeah.
Back in the days, and as a teenager, it's like, oh, this is where it's really happening. It's not at my high school. It's here's where the cool people. This is where we get our information. This is how we learn about music. And,
not only that, but it's about freedom. You know what I mean? That is the whole thing. Is
and connecting with that culture.
Yeah, about being young, about being free, and about coming up with your own ideas and thinking for yourself. And it's like, I think that all of these different things and the commercialization of them, not so much, I guess you could say that, they were always commercialized things, but they weren't like, there was merit to them, right? It's not, like I said, the glossy, just the name and like, oh, we'll do whatever and say whatever to, to still be relevant. Yeah. So what are you listening to these days?
Gosh, not a whole lot of anything new. I guess I, reached that kind of plateau. I just kind of get grabbed for, I got a Spotify playlist, and most of the time I'm just playing stuff that I added to my liked list, right? I'm embarrassed to say it really hasn't changed all that much recently as far as new artists or new music. I'm trying to think of, there's somebody I could name. Charles, got me, turning me on to Wet Leg. Besides their one hit that they actually have some other pretty good stuff.
Wow.
Have you heard them yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I haven't.
Yeah, you got to check them out.
I will check them out. Most of the time, I hear I've heard they're called Maniskin or something. They're like they're like an Italian band. Yeah, and I've mentioned them before, but I really do like that. I mean, I think they have really great songs, and that was the first band that I heard in a long time where I thought, oh my gosh, they're like, I guess they're in their 20s or something, and they have, they're doing this thing. But the interesting thing is
they kind of got an Iggy Pop vibe, but they don't.
Yeah, they did, but I think
it's not like they try too hard at it,
No, but I think in a way that was a smart move because number one, everything is they aren't getting any traction in terms of I mean, they may have traction in other European countries and Italy and, you know, and all that. But I mean, in terms of like the real mainstream here, I hadn't heard anything about him. I heard about him through a friend of mine who said, oh, you know, you got to check out this band from Italy and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, I never really heard a really great rock band come out of Italy.
Well,
most of it's very, you know, generally is very pop and, you know, sort of disco and everything like that.
Yeah, but you know what? One of my kids' friends, one Friday night, they came over to our pad and I had them, you know, just come on to the radio show, the press play show. And we asked them to make a request, and one of the girls asked for Maneskin.
Oh, wow. Well, maybe there is.
Like, holy cow. I mean, her parents are hip. They're cool. You know, that's probably where they picked it up from. But it's not like, you know, these people are on the cutting edge
right
of hipness and coolness. And, you know, this girl, she's not as quite as deeply into the music as my kid is, but, you know, okay, you know, cool. You know, so you'd be surprised
that
sometimes
really
what kids
cool.
People pick up on. You know, maybe they got a bigger thing out here than you or I would know.
Yeah, that's true, because I really don't know. I wouldn't really know where to start in terms of, you know, because it's, I mean, even radio, they're just playing, I mean, it's just like, you know, the whole classic rock thing, you know, oh, this week someone said something bad about this artist. And now it's like, it's sort of weird. It is like sort of like the old people's home. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you know, what was it the other week? Joan Jett answers because Ted Nugent said something bad about her she didn't like or something, and you know, and then Ted Nugent replied back, and it's like, this isn't like even like, it's just like stupid.
And it's like two kids on a playground kind of being
but I
forced
guess
to fight each other, and they didn't really want to fight.
Right, but it's probably just like, you know, there's nothing else to really say. But maybe it's just like, you know, the whole like you suck thing, and then, you know, I'll do a press release saying that no, I don't.
Yeah, well, I think that whole thing is, you know, Ted Nugent's kind of become the Donald Trump of rock and roll.
Yeah, but he was always out there. He was always saying so. And now the interesting thing is, if you go back and you read what a lot of these people said, and Spin and Cream and all that stuff today, people's hair would be on fire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's not like, you know, now it's like very,
well,
you know,
that'll come out eventually, you know, for one reason or another.
no, but I mean,
look at John Wayne. Look at John Wayne. He said stuff in a Playboy interview back in 70 something.
Yeah.
And who knows what his context or what his intent was. And now, you know, everybody's thinking, what a racist, blah, blah. You know, I forget what it even was. It was, you know.
But you know what? Why does that even matter? I don't understand. I mean, I've heard about that, and it's like, why are you even talking about that? Why are you going back to, why don't you be the best person that you
Let's hate this, you know,
and like
white,
stop looking at other people.
Leader. Yeah. No, they just want to find a reason to take an old white great American mentor for a lot of people and take him up their pedestal.
Yeah, but they'll never be able to do that because he had merit. You can't. I mean, his film, he did some of the greatest films in history, so you can't really like take away.
But they're going to, people are going to try, you know, and no matter who you are, you know, somebody will eventually, if you say something out of context or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think people are getting tired of that.
Yeah,
you know,
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah.
The internet's a two-edged sword. The internet is a two-edged sword.
Yeah, well, you know.
Just people can dig into your past and find all kinds of dirt to dig out on you. I'm just glad we lived our wildest years before that.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the point of that? I mean, it's like what to me that I have no understanding of that type of idea of, you know, uh, the very strange idea of trying to find other, you know,
Dirt on people's past.
yeah.
Oh yeah, they will. I got into a confrontation once with a guy online. You know,
Oh,
which I
really?
hadn't. Yeah, it was crazy. Just yeah, I hadn't seen this guy in at least 25 years, and he took offense to something I said, and then blew it up, and then he was like, I could tell it's like he's reading through my bio and or my Facebook and all this stuff. It's like, just really looking for something to just trash me on. It's like, what's
Well,
there is there. You're not going to embarrass me.
Right. But what you're going to say, all you have to do is just say, spell my name right. I don't care what you say about me. Spell my name right, and I'm cool.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Well, yeah, I dug it out on him though. I knew some ultimate dirt on him that he probably forgot about.
Oh yeah, well that
and and I got in front of his wife, so that ended. It ended. I won.
That's funny. Yeah. But you're gonna have to do a playlist, right?
I am, yeah. Probably won't be so much brand new stuff.
But
I did like that last.
Playlist was really great. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be eclectic, I'm sure. Maybe I'll throw, I like that last Black Keys album. That's a little not exactly new anymore. The band is not new, but I was kind of liking that pretty good.
It's funny too. I was listening to this thing where they were talking about, the whole how things, the arc of things. By the way, before I go into that, I want to ask you about, have you seen the Pistols?
I did.
What did you think about that?
I liked it quite a bit, actually. I mean, it wasn't perfect. There was some embellishment in there, but I dug it, actually. I started, I really thought I was going to hate it. Because, how can you find people to play these characters and enjoy them, right? I mean, it's just, nearly impossible roles to step into and be convincing in any way, shape, or form. But I thought they did a really good job. One thing I wasn't expecting is part of it was the Chrissie Hynde story. But I ended up liking that side of it. It's like, oh, okay, she, I was familiar. Yeah, I knew she was there, but I didn't know the extent of the story or anything like that. And I like that actress. I mean, she didn't look like her so much, but she just seemed to have the vocal mannerisms down to a T with her, and she was convincing as heck. The John Lydon character, yeah, he was annoying. But when they did the live scenes, I thought he was pretty good. And then he had a good arc in the story where in the end he was pretty connectable. And so overall, I kind of liked it pretty good.
That was a big brouhaha, though.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, John Lydon didn't like it, didn't want it to be done. And I could understand his point of view, but hey, Steve Jones could write a book if he wants to, and if he wants, he could, make a movie or a series out of it if he wants to. It's his creation there. It was his music in the first place for the most part. So Steve Jones was within his rights to do it.
Yeah.
So,
it still makes it really, how can you say, difficult when there's like an enormous public fight over. But then again, like I said, it just really just helps the series. I'll have to check that out.
You haven't seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. Like you, I was like, I'm too afraid to see.
Yeah.
I thought, well, maybe it'll
my
change
brother.
my mind.
my brother is worse than me. He's more inclined to dislike something than like it, especially in the context of rock and roll biographies, right?
Yeah.
But I was just texting back and forth with him over it. Of course, he had the same defense mechanism that you and I had. It's like, you can't do that. Come on, give me a break. It's going to be terrible. But I also like watching something that's truly terrible. Just so I could say I was right. Like whatever that Motley Crue story was. I was god awful in every way, shape, or form. But the Sex Pistols thing, I was telling my brother, and he's telling, everybody's telling me it's really good. I'll check it out. And then he checked it out. He says, he said he liked it all right, which is saying a lot for him. But I thought they did it overall pretty good job.
Well, maybe that's the format, though. Maybe that's the format for like some of these stories, rather than doing a movie and trying to squeeze everything into like 2 hours or something, to do like a series like Danny Boyle did.
Yeah.
How many episodes? How many episodes?
I want to say like in the ballpark of a dozen or 12 or 15 in that ballpark.
Wow.
And it's pretty, they're all pretty lengthy. I mean, an hour, commercial free. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth watching. I just, at the very best, I think you'll dig it. At the very worst, it's not going to be as bad as you thought it was.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, just watch the first 2 or 3, and if you hate it, stop it. If you see something there, keep on with it. But I like the Chrissy Hines side of it too. I've always liked her and the Pretenders, and it's kind of neat to see what her part in that story was. I mean, not exactly huge, but big on Steve Jones anyway.
Yeah.
And then it shows her kind of, hey, what about me? I need a band. And she really never got Malcolm's approval so much. She always wanted to be in the Sex Pistols. He tried to hook her up with the Clash. I think you know that part of the story, right?
No.
Or what became the Clash.
No.
She was lined up, and it was kind of an introduction by Malcolm McLaren, and that part in the story is pretty accurate. But by the time they got in touch, he was pretty much complete with the lineup that became the Clash. So she's always kind of missing her opportunity until finally she says, screw these people, and puts her own band together. And lo and behold, she was better than any of them.
Wow. Yeah, well, she certainly had and continuing a long career.
Yeah, she's badass. I've always had respect for her.
Yeah, no, she's great. I really like what she has to say too. She says things the way they are, which is really a refreshing thing. But I was going to ask you one other thing about, one thing I still trip on whenever with the Pistols is the fact that they did one album.
Yeah, and you can't count that Rock and Roll Swindle as theirs.
Yeah, I know, but it's sort of funny the way it's sort of marketed now. They the original it's put in as the original recordings on the new compilation or whatever.
I haven't looked at that, because I don't know. I'm not that. I've heard enough of them in my time, and if I want to hear Sex Pistols, I'll put on never mind the Bullocks. Just based on what I know
live
about
album,
Swindle.
The Filthy Lucre tour. That was great.
I saw some video, I think, from that, but haven't really listened.
Yeah, it's really great. I saw 2 shows during that time.
Oh, you did?
Came back in '96. Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't go. I don't know where I was at that time. I just didn't go.
No, I made sure I saw them twice. I think they played. I saw them at the Universal Amphitheater, and I think I might have seen them at the Hollywood Palladium.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
And
if I
and you didn't
remember
feel let
correctly.
down?
Huh?
You didn't feel let down at all?
No, because part of our whole, I guess you could say, I don't know about you, but I always feel like it was sort of like we're sort of like a record skip. You know what I mean? Because like all the music that I love, at least, was happened 10 years. I was like 8 years old when it was happening,
Mhm.
7 or 8. So I didn't really, I came across these things after they were already over. And
Yeah.
as you know, prior to the internet, prior to like the great vomit of culture that has sort of come out over the internet, it's like most people didn't really weren't aware of them. I don't think. I mean, you
Yeah.
didn't hear like in the 80s, I don't remember hearing people talk about the Sex Pistols that much.
Not unless you listen to what was true alternative radio in that time. That would be KUCI and the college stations,
Yeah.
and they still offered that sort of thing. Mostly these days. I mean, not entirely, but yeah, that's all you had. And then the kids who you knew went to the record stores or wore the cool T-shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a thing.
But
I mean,
yeah, but we had a 10 or 15 year gap in the stuff we liked, right?
yeah,
But kids nowadays, I mean, my kid likes, the same general era. She likes the hippie stuff. She likes the 60s in particular. But, she also likes, Blondie and, everything that we went to on that Cruel World Festival.
oh yeah,
She loves all that. But, for her, we're talking about a 40 or 50 year age gap. And that's what a lot of other kids are on that same bandwagon. They're coming into the record stores, buying stuff. They're not buying current things; they're buying old stuff.
Well, because
old records are outselling new records.
Well, because that it goes back to merit. There isn't. A lot of this stuff has to do with this sort of. I guess you could say that everything being very bland, and maybe it's because industries have changed so much, and
because now they're putting out a product, and back in the days we're talking about, a record, an album, that was, especially in the early 70s through most of the 70s in particular, 60s started it. But an album became an artistic statement. It was, every album was important, and it showed where they were developing as an artist and stuff like that. Nowadays, it's like I don't know what people are thinking as they put out records, or record a CD or whatever it is they're going to put out there. How they're going to market it. They're not thinking of it as a whole entire statement anymore. It's crappy individual songs in a one song, a download that somebody might pay for. I mean, gone are the days where you could get that big 12 by 12 album, and maybe it has a gatefold or something like that, and something for you to read and dig into the lyrics. People, I guess they don't want to print the lyrics anymore because they're dumb as hell.
Or maybe they can't write.
Yeah,
I don't know. Read.
I know you and I would believe that. Yeah.
Well,
but that's why I think that's why kids are, they're not. I don't think they're being fooled by that. They could go to Spotify and get, type in an artist, and they get a playlist based around that, and they not only get the artist that they were looking for and the song they might have been looking for, but they're getting all kinds of great recommendations there, and that's where and they're picking up on the good stuff because why? It's good. It's not like the modern.
Wasn't it Kate Bush who sort of like came back into the like charts the other month ago or something?
Oh yeah, that was because of Stranger Things. So have you watched that?
No.
You have not seen Stranger Things?
No, I have not.
Oh my gosh. I mean, just
I'm
Yeah,
very
it did
out of
not
the
happen.
blue.
Okay, it's a great story. It did not happen just based on Spotify or a playlist or anything like that. Literally, it was in the story of Stranger Things. And well, what I like about it is it's based on kids, primarily junior high and into high school as it follows their arc over the years, right? But they got this entity in the area that's causing all this commotion. It's it's kind of Stephen King like in a sense, but it's based on these kids in the early mid 80s, in this town. And so the music is all 80s stuff, and they dig pretty deep for it and they place it. I love when movies and TV, when they place the song so well into the storyline.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on, but the people behind Stranger Things have been amazing with it, especially on this last season, because look, they turn, everybody's into Kate Bush now. How do you get kids into Kate Bush? I mean, you're familiar with Kate Bush, aren't you?
Yeah, I know who she is. I never really listened to her music, but
yeah, I mean, she's a very unique artist, and it's not for everybody because it's incredibly feminine in nature. I mean, you're not going to find any men who are going to admit to being Kate Bush fans other than finding her attractive or something, right? But she's got a pretty interesting, musical background and such. And, she had that one big hit in the 80s. Whoops, hold on. Sorry, did that get into the audio?
no.
Okay. But anyway, just kind of going back, she's, I couldn't think of any possible way to, even if I had influence in the world, if like, hey, everybody listen to my playlist and everybody's going to cling on to it and it's going to be a thing, right? I mean, I can't think of a way where you could just like put Kate Bush into the conversation. I mean, you just can't. I mean, she's just not that kind of artist. And it's not a put down at all. It's just, she's very unique. And she had, one real hit. I mean, she's had some other lesser hits, but that's her one real hit in life. But anyhow, they placed it very well into the storyline. And so, the next day after that show aired, it was like all of a sudden this thing was in the top 5 downloads. And it's been in the list, pretty much ever since. It's like, so everybody's like looking at the top downloads. It's like, why is everybody listening to Kate Bush? What's with running up that hill?
Yeah.
And then that brought her other albums and stuff into the mix and stuff too. But and then another big story that last season brought out was Metallica, Master of Puppets. And you and I are not fans, but you might have heard of that.
I liked I will say I was a secret Metallica lover for some of their other stuff that came out later. Okay. I mean, some of their earlier stuff, it's funny. I didn't really, that was hardcore and it was off limits sort of for us to like them. Right.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
I don't know.
My opinion of them in that time frame was, and I was kind of gravitating out of metal by then as a bottom line. But, my opinion of Metallica is, okay, that's real pure metal. I'm just over it. And it didn't appeal to me, but I thought, okay, I didn't, it's too aggressive for me, but, musicianship is actually quite good. I have other reasons. I can't stand that drummer on personal reasons. It's just, I don't have a leg to stand on with it, but dude, he's an incredible drummer. No doubt. So anyhow, with Stranger Things, they really placed that song into a prominent spot in that whole season. And they made this kid who's a heavy metal kid, of that era, pretty much like that guy would have been a buddy of me and William in those days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Leather jacket and everything. I mean, pretty, and a well-placed character. He did the job well. He was convincing. I was telling my kid, that was me about 1983. You know, I mean, and he was very authentic in that role. But anyhow, he had this key scene where that song is played, and Metallica just loved it. They had the guy, they invited him, backstage and stuff, and the guy's just a big celebrity nowadays over that whole scene alone.
Wow,
It was really cool. So
that out.
You got to start from the beginning with that show. But the last one, Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about what is the Pistols is on FX, right?
I think so, but I watched it through Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm gonna have to check out Stranger Things too. I don't know any. Have you heard of something else called Succession? I think it is, or Succession,
no,
or something. It's something like on HBO.
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't have HBO, so that's probably part of it. Is that music based or what?
No, I don't know. It's some show. I was listening to some other podcast or something like that, and they were talking about the show, and one of the actresses that was on it. So that was it. I was just curious because I hear things, but there's so many shows now, and you don't know, is this, it's like, what did I hear recently? Now it's really about filtering information that you're, because there's so much information thrown at you every day, right? So he was saying the best way to deal with things is just to filter everything. And if you filter everything, then you're not, you're not just thrown all over the place by, what's on social media,
thrown out, being talked down.
It's really hard
like
to
a
find
parent and dazed and confused over it all.
Yeah, well, I mean, 1 minute now, you hear one thing about a show, or you open up Netflix or you open up any of these platforms, and there are so many things on there to watch, and well, I'm sure you've experienced that, right? And what do? I end up going for the stuff I already know, because if I know,
that's why I mainly watch just random stuff on YouTube myself. I mean, there's be some, people on, slight political topics that I like watching here and there. There's some good musical, influencers, I guess you call them, that I like quite a bit.
Who do you listen to? Who are the music people you listen to?
Actually, one I think you would like is called Professor of Rock.
Okay.
You heard of that? Yeah, it's more, it kind of plays out like it could have been on MTV back in the day. But he just talks about, like his latest one, the 70s one-hit wonder was so disturbing, the FCC tried to outlaw it, and anyhow, he's talking about this band with a hit in 1971 that I never heard about, that had this really creepy song about his friend dying in a car accident.
Wow.
But, and he goes into really good detail on that. Like, holy cow. I didn't know that part of the story. It's interesting, just interesting to know. And then
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, and then there's this guy, Michael, I think it's Michael Noland. Make a note of that, and check him out sometime. It's just this older guy, who talks about albums, that he likes, and the impact of those in the day, vernacular, that time and where they were and stuff like that. And he's really good. I mean, I would think it's kind of like, to hear somebody just talk about their opinion on an album, it's kind of dry, but he makes it quite interesting. He's a good storyteller about it all.
Oh,
Whoa.
check that out.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool.
hmm So yeah, with that, there's some pretty good stuff to be found about anything in music. One guy, I'd have to find it or send it to you for the show notes sometimes, but he did. This guy did a documentary about three early or mid-era Stones albums.
Which ones? Goat's Head Soup or Let It
I think
Bleed?
Goat's Head was one of them. Let It Bleed was one of them. That's the one in particular that I watched the most. But he's like going on with pictures and details and stuff, and like each one is like 90 minutes. It's like, where did this guy?
Wow.
And he's not connected with the band in any way. I don't know where he got all this information from, but he's just going on about anything from recording techniques to what the band was fighting about or dealing with and who their girlfriends were, and this incredible level of detail. Like, damn, this guy, he really knows his stuff. Holy,
Well, I guess a lot of stuff. Well, I mean, it's really all out there. That's the thing,
Yeah.
and then you throw in people's personal experience, and how fans, I mean, both of us understand that dynamic because there weren't all these distractions, and that's why it's really hard to put into context some of these things that are transpiring or what's going on, because it was very limited. It was like, okay, well, if you were a teenager, what were you going to do? You're going to go and be into music and the fan magazines. That was pretty much it, unless you were watching some TV show, but that wasn't really sort of where it was at. Or you were playing Asteroids and what was that? What was that thing called?
Pong?
Atari, right? Atari or something like that. So
yeah.
I think that people, if you were really into something, which in my own way I can relate to, you can then you were just, you were buying Creem, you were buying Circus Magazine, you were going to record shows. Like I used to go to the one over in Buena Park. And there was this guy there named Steve, and Steve would sell me stuff that nobody had ever heard before. I bought live Runaways tapes of shows, bootlegs from him. He even had, which I still think I have, he had a cassette tape he sold me of Joan Jett in between the Runaways and the Blackhearts, and she's in England. And she's sitting and talking with like the head of their fan club over there. And so you were able to, what I'm saying is you had people who were like going, if you wanted to find the information and get those details, you had a lot more access than I would make the argument now, even with cell phones and computers and all these different things. If you wanted to know, you could do it. And I got the Live in Japan, the videotape. I remember I gave it to Rodney Bingenheimer. He didn't even have it or something like that. And every time I called after that, he goes like, "Oh, aren't you the guy who gave me the Live in Japan?"
Wow, cool.
Or something like that. Yeah, for a while I got I would go up to it wasn't Pasadena, they were in Burbank and stuff, and I would go and hang out or try and chat with them, or I would call in every week and ask what was Iggy Pop doing, what was why this was going on, why was this band getting back together or something like that.
Yeah, I guess he was really cool about those sort of things.
Yeah, but he knew all that stuff,
Yeah,
There's actually a really, I don't know if you're on, when speaking of things, I think it's sound recorders, but one of the studios in LA, one of those, I think it's sound recorders that's on Sunset, and they have a really good podcast or something like to that effect where, they have different people come on, and I saw Rodney on it, and it was interesting listening to him listening to him talk about stuff and then talk about, and it was recent too. It's just like probably, I think it was either 2020. It was probably 2020 during the lockdown. Yeah. The guy asked him, huh?
No, go ahead.
The guy asked him, oh, what do you think of the record industry now or whatever? And he said, what record industry? He goes, there is no record industry anymore. I just thought it was really funny because it's like sort of, yeah, all the things are there, you know, the institutions and stuff like that. But maybe, do you think it's maybe because the change has been so drastic that you don't really see anything that you recognize anymore? And so that's why he thinks it's not there. Do you know what I mean? Or is it just, you know, because everybody talks about things and these things go on and on and on and on. It's like goes back to the, you know, the Elvis movie and sort of like, you know, oh, he's the evil manager. And it's always the evil manager. And the artist is tortured and they're brilliant. And even though the manager made them millions of dollars and made them have a life that they could, you know, they could only dream of, they are still evil. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, that's story. I mean, those type of stories. And it's like, oh, there is no more record industry. Okay, well, that's like the story that's been going on since the internet came in, right? That, oh, everything is over, but it's not really over. You know what I mean? It's like, I think
it's still there, but
but I think,
I mean, but what if you had, you know, the beat, you know, a talent as good as Elvis or the Beatles or whatever in the vernacular of today, you know, something that could break that big. You know, could you even have a band that had the impact that those people did?
I think they could, but I think that it would, but it's really up to, and this is where it always goes back to, the artist, because even the Beatles, I think, were turned down like 50 times or something like that. And they had to keep, excuse me, they had to keep going back. So really it's about playing the long game with anything. But the problem is now you're in a world where the long game is like, oh, what, a week?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, for instance, it's, you know, the whole Bowie thing. I thought, you know, when he passed, in one aspect, it made me a little bit sad to see that, you know, there's all these people putting up the Aladdin Sane album, right, on their social media posts and stuff like that. And I thought, I wonder how many people have ever listened to Aladdin Sane. You know what I mean? And then after that, and you know, I guess maybe it's the cynic in me, or that whole like,
or people under 40.
Huh?
Or people under 40 for that matter.
Right. But I mean, I guess what gets under my skin a little bit, I guess, is that people don't have the curiosity. You know, we all stand on the shoulders of people that came before us, and there's all these wonderful things to discover, you know? And I just thought, like, for me, at least in my experience of music, you know, from whether it was my parents, what we heard on the radio, or when they took me to the Ice House to see Magwell and the Lugnuts, that like 50s cover band, which I actually found a picture of them on Facebook, and or like the way we met, and, you know, all the music, you know, that I got turned on to through you, I wouldn't have known about. But there was that element of curiosity, and you don't really see that in you know, I guess
it's there.
Maybe it is
but
there.
It is and like I said, you know, with Spotify, you know,
kids are just, I know. Oh, I totally get that, but I mean, when you're talking about you know, asking about, well, if there was a Beatles, would there be a Beatles?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Would there be stuff? And I think that maybe all this stuff, for instance, my view of like, people not having enough curiosity or whatever, and all these other things, maybe it's all like somewhere in the middle. And if you're somewhere in the middle, like you have a kid, you're around kids, so you understand that a whole lot better, where, I'm not. So I don't know what's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess it's
darn true that I'm more optimistic just based on my own kid, observing my own kid and her friends. And now she's at an age where she's gravitating to, new friends based on that, kind of like how you and I got to know each other, So,
that's
she's
really cool.
Already met a girl who she didn't know before, but they bond on music.
Yeah. That's
Go
really
figure.
Cool.
And they're bonding on stuff that, is old, 50 years old.
Right. But I mean, at the same point, it's like, I guess, now that it's available there, it's like, it's like now they're ringing the bell saying, come and get it. All you have to do is have a phone or have access to Spotify or Pandora or one of these streaming services, and you can hear it. Whereas, so it's really
but hopefully, something will come out there that just connects and breaks down whatever barrier needs to be. Maybe right now we just don't know what that barrier is, but somebody comes out and breaks that barrier, and we have a vibrant music scene again.
Oh well, I think
totally.
I think it will come back.
So.
I think it's just cycles. People.
Yeah, but it's been a long cycle. It's been a long down cycle.
Yeah, that is true. But I also think it's not just about music this time. It's a wider thing of in terms of culture, in terms of things, because of the disruptions and the chaos in the political area. The internet, all the other stuff that's gone on, I think it's sort of changed things so drastically, and the systems have changed. And I don't think a lot of people don't know where they are. You know what I mean? They don't understand. Whereas before there was, everybody knew, okay, well, this is what you do. This is how you do it. If you want to, things were very, self-explanatory, whereas I think now everything is up in the air. And I think that's why, it's really more about those two things: the collapse of sort of the traditional print, the industrial disruption, and and the political disruption and chaos and that. And I think those two things together are the perfect storm. And that's why you don't have, one sort of, like, oh, I'm a teenager here in California, but I know there's a teenager in Wyoming or a teenager in New York who knows about this band. And, we get our information through Creem, because as Shuri Curry said in her book, I loved it. She said, it doesn't matter who's in the White House. Mickey Mouse could be there, but teenagers are still fighting the same old battles on the dance floor, or something like that. There was some variation, but I just thought that is really cool. That's really what rock and roll. I just thought it was cool. So anyway.
Excuse me a second. Just trying to fight off a sneeze here.
Well, that's okay. I've probably
stepped in front of the fan.
I've probably kept you. We've been going on for an hour and a half. So
yeah,
we should probably wrap it up. Do you have anything you want? What's going on? Well, what's going on with Press Play? Are you guys going to do a Halloween show?
I expect so. I can't guarantee that at the moment, but I don't see why not. Yeah, probably we'll go for 3 or 4 hours of it, because
you guys should try and do like maybe a back to school show or something like that, or I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
you
I don't
could do
know
the
either.
Seventh Day. Remember, like they had all those. What was that? Joe Benson on KLOS, and
Uh-huh.
he had the Seventh Day, and you
Play
have
an
to come up
entire
with
album.
something. Yeah.
Well, you can't do that nowadays. You can't play entire albums.
Well, why
'Cause,
not? You could do whatever you want.
well, within reason, but like, they have limitations there where, yeah, we could play whatever we want, but we can't say, hey, we're going to play, Dark Side of the Moon this day in its entirety.
Oh,
Why can't you
okay.
do that? Because somebody could download that as entire
Oh,
album,
yeah.
and not ever, I don't know. There's, copyright, limitations there.
Right. I
So
totally get it.
even in the internet world, I mean, yeah, you could probably do it and get away with it once or twice, but
Yeah.
you risk getting shut down from your streaming provider. So,
Yeah.
but he's got a resource there, that gives us plenty of leeway to play whatever the heck we want. We just can't play an entire album by one artist.
Yeah.
So I think that's reasonable.
Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah. So
It is.
anyway, yeah, maybe around Halloween or so we'll do maybe at least a 3-hour show. I'd be down for that.
And you guys still have an archive of shows, right? People can go and listen to and stream.
Yeah, that'll be out there forever. Yep. And who knows? We might, maybe it'll get, we'll pick up at some point in the future and do it all again in some capacity, either the same format or maybe change a little bit. It's more so up to Charles right now, but I'd be along for the ride if he wanted to do something.
Yeah.
And he knows that. He knows that too. So there you go.
Cool. All right.
So,
well, you have you have to do a playlist. So
I will do that. What, 5 songs?
no, let's do an even 20. How about that? Or you could do you could do as many as you want. The longest playlist I received was like 200 and some songs.
Yeah, you're not going to get that from me.
Well, at least you could we'll collaborate on it. How about that?
Uh-huh.
I want to at least have the songs that we mentioned on this, podcast so that people can.
Yeah, maybe I'll do a list of 10 songs from back in the day that you and I probably would have dug that,
Yeah.
heavily back then. Gen X and Ray Rocks, crap like that.
And
contrast that with what I listen to nowadays, and they'll think, "Is this the same person?"
Yeah. Well, you could even throw some Dawkins in.
No. No.
No, Bon Jovi.
Maybe I'll throw in some old school metal, but no, not Bon Jovi. I don't know. Oh no, I did see that Iron Maiden was coming to town and playing up the road from me. I thought, that might be a good nostalgia fix.
Maybe we should throw in some Ozzy and dedicate it to William.
There you go. I don't know. I think the world has had enough of Ozzy. God bless him. I love Ozzy, but for those who listen to him and still consider, I don't know. And we're not, context of Black Sabbath and everything. Yeah, he's deeply important, but it's kind of I don't know. He's a good TV character nowadays.
Yeah,
which I think is
like
hilarious. I never would have saw that coming.
Yeah,
TV show and all that.
Well, he's a very, very good manager.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of hers, but there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's very difficult to, there are not many people who are married to their manager or are, generally when people are related to someone they're in business with, it doesn't really end well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of business relationship in that more than anything. Come on, I mean, I think in the last year or two, he's even cheated on her, if I recall correctly. I don't follow that stuff, but she still sticks by him. So, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like she depends on him for money. She's
Right.
pretty wildly successful on her own.
Yeah, she is. She
So
is.
who'd have thunk? Yeah, like I say, I'm not a big fan of hers, but you know, yeah, probably definitely a very good manager and obviously a good media celebrity as well. You know, more power
Yeah,
to
well,
her.
I mean, you have to look at what
I
she
just wouldn't
did.
want to be in her line of influence.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll wrap it up here and want to thank you so much, Dave. And what am I going to say now? Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to say click the like button on YouTube, share it, write a review on Apple Podcasts, all that's good stuff. And Dave's going to do the playlist, and I'll annoy him till he gets that done. And I'll even
Oh
pick
yeah.
a couple of songs. And
Okay.
we'll be back with another exciting guest soon.
Cool. All right. Well, nice chatting with you.
Good chatting with you too, Dave. Thank you. Rock on.
I'll be what you want me to be. The darkness will turn to light. I'm your dirty secret tonight. Dream or nightmare, take a look inside.
The College of Rock and Roll Knowledge is a production of Ton Up Incorporated. Copyright 2022, Ton Up Incorporated.